How's that? How's the screen and the sound and all that stuff?
It all looks good. Your hair's a little bit gray. You might do something to the hair color.
It's a little bit thin and it's a little bit gray and it's a little bit at the end of its life.
Yeah, me too, brother. Me too. Well, let me welcome you in officially, 1988 world champion Barton Lynch. Welcome to the Boardroom Podcast. Barton, obviously you're in Hawaii now. Some real simple questions about the quarantine protocol when you flew in there. What was it like getting off the plane and sort of dealing with the state of Hawaii?
I mean, questions around this whole situation that we're living in are obviously loaded questions regardless, because it would seem that there's not a lot of tolerance out there for other people's opinions.
Yeah.
And it seems like a time where, from what I see, particularly in and around social media and stuff, people are very certain of themselves. And my experience of life is that when you're scared, you back something into a corner, it gets like that. It becomes aggressive, it becomes judgmental, it becomes self-righteous, and it becomes that they know and you're wrong because you don't agree with them. And that's been my most daunting prospect around doing media at this point in time. And obviously the Blast Off video challenge has been a great thing and a great success. And I go into that world and it's so full of stoke and there's all this positivity and these wonderful fresh faces and young kids just beaming with stoke. And then you turn on the telly or go into the real world and the other side of it happens, you know? So I'm very, I suppose, cautious about what I say and how I say it at this point.
Well, look, I don't want to,
it's a very difficult world.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I just know that look, there's a lot of surfers that are heading to Hawaii or thinking about heading to Hawaii right now as the season supposedly getting off the ground. And I do know that, or maybe you can fill me in, when you arrive in Hawaii, they're like 14 days, you got to hang out at your place for a week or 2 weeks. You can't leave your place. Was that your experience?
Yeah, totally. We arrived, I'm on day 5 or 6 of quarantine today. And, you know, luckily we have a yard and some outdoor area and, you know, this is my favorite place in the world. This is my happy place, this house. So being here is not that bad, but knowing that the ocean is a stone's throw that way.
Yeah.
And you're not allowed to go swim in it. Even if you were to walk down there, jump in it, have a swim and come back, it's illegal.
Yeah.
And you might not even see a human being or come within 6 feet or anything like that. So there's, you know, it's a serious situation. And they also let you know that you're not allowed to have anyone come and visit your home.
Yeah.
Whether it's to bring you food or, you know what I mean? You can get medical, you know, if it's a medical situation, there's tolerance around medical situations, but otherwise it is a very serious situation. And so we haven't left the yard for 5 or 6 days. You know.
Well, here's the deal. Wednesday, I think, well, no, this weekend perhaps. As you know, there's some pretty solid northwest swell coming your way.
Oh, I don't look, mate. Why would I look?
Okay,
Drive yourself crazy.
I apologize.
I've done, thank you. Yeah. I've done, you know, I did, you know, I went down to Mexico City, you know, a week ago. I was there for, near on 3 weeks, 2.5 weeks in Mexico City. And you know, and at altitude there and drying out and, you know, just feeling like my gills were starting to they were, you know, sealing over and now I'm into, you know, I'm close to 3.5 weeks of not being in the ocean, and which for me is, you know, that never happens. And so it's but, you know, the airport procedure itself is it was kind of funny in a way that, you know, say you're in Mexico City, you would walk into Starbucks and get your temperature taken. Our hotel had a sanitizing machine that when you walked into the door, you had to stand there and it sprayed you down before you were allowed into the hotel. Then they would like to wipe your suitcases down and wipe, you know, there's enormous fear and paranoia out there, mate. It's incredible the degrees to which people in hazmat suits with gloves on, these are people riding on a plane, right? Hazmat suits, gloves, mask, glasses, face shield.
Yeah.
It's like you could see the awkwardness of them in their environment.
Yeah.
And, you know, I suppose the word in the street is that we're more virus and bacteria than we are human cells.
Wow.
And so our existence and our species evolution is a part. We're part virus. It's a part of our whole evolution. And you know, there's all sorts of opinions on this situation, and you know, in America they tend to fall down political party lines, and depending on what party you support, that's your opinion around COVID. And it seems that there's a lot of, you know, there's a lot of unfortunate hardship and a lot of unfortunate. There's loss of life, of course, you know. But the realities are that you know, when the dust settles, it'd be interesting to see where things lie. You know. Yeah. It's
let's
a weird world to go into, though. Going out into the COVID world and having the opportunity to travel through it and in it was quite an experience. And I'm glad I got to do it, and I'm glad I got to see it, to understand the degrees of fear that are existing in mankind and that have been put there. You know, so I feel, you know.
Well, look, you're in your happy place, as you mentioned. So let's try to focus there. And I want to, first of all, let me ask you this: how many years have you been going to Hawaii? When was your first trip there?
My first trip to Hawaii was 1981.
Yeah.
And I've only missed one winter since 81, and that was a winter when post-tour days I was in financial hardship and couldn't afford to come.
Yeah.
And that was heartbreaking. There was a year that I came for, you know, the year before that, as the money was drying up, I could only afford 10 days. So there's been a couple of years in there right in the middle of my retirement where I didn't get here. But since finishing touring, you know, we ordinarily spend about 4 months here. I would come sort of in October and do October, November. Then I would leave for the Triple Crown period of time, and then I'd come back and do January, February, March, and we'd sort of do that 4 months every year. And now we're at that point, you know, where I am now. We bought this property in 1989.
Yeah.
So I've had this house, you know, for 30 years here, and this feels like home to us. And after we got here in October last year, and we went, you know, we were going to leave at the end of March and, you know, go to Bali in April, the Maldives in May, join WSL for Margaret River, go to G-Land, you know, had the year all planned out, and then the COVID thing hit, and so we ended up getting locked down here essentially, and we're here until we were getting month to month what they call stays of satisfactory departure, where they would give us a month to month extensions on our visas, given lockdowns and inabilities to fly anywhere and all of that. And so then it got to set my biggest fear through all of summer, and having spent my first summer here, you know, in having come here so many times and been here so many times, to have never spent a summer, the idea of it going flat was something that my mind didn't really know if was true. Like, is that actually what happens? Or are they just saying that and there's some secret they're keeping to themselves, you know? So it was great to kind of spend a summer and watch that energy that this ocean has in the height of winter just dissipate to the point where it's a dead set lake, and it doesn't move. It's not even washing up and down the shore. It's just sitting there kind of. And it made me realize that it's the most bipolar environment I've ever been in.
Yeah. Yeah,
you know,
good
from
point.
one extreme of the surf thing to the other extreme. And so you're living in an environment that has just such extremes to it, to its ocean conditions. And I really loved. It's the first summer I've spent, really, because I've been on the endless winter for more or less ever since I finished my touring days and I started snowboarding.
Yeah.
And the obvious advantages of winter surfing and then snowboarding, you know, we would do the Northern Hemisphere winter, and then around March or April, we'd fly back down to the Southern Hemisphere winter and then fly back up to the Northern Hemisphere winter. So to do a summer somewhere, yeah, it's been 20 years since I did a summer somewhere. And
when you snowboard down in the Southern Hemisphere winter, are you in New Zealand, or are you?
Yeah.
I know Australia doesn't have the best snowboarding. Maybe Chile or something, or
no. Ordinarily I go to Thredbo, which is in New South Wales, the state where Sydney, where I grew up, is. And you've got the snowy mountains down there, which go through Victoria and New South Wales, and there's half a dozen resorts. And I go to a resort called Thredbo, and Thredbo's got great when it's on. Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing on those powder days.
I saw some video of you going down a run in a powder day. Was that at Thredbo?
That might have been in Japan in
Oh,
January.
okay. Yeah.
We went to Japan in January for a couple of weeks and had a snowboard over there, and then came back.
I heard
here.
that's incredible, right? The Mentawais of snowboarding or something.
Yeah. It's the powder capital. There's just so much snow. I suppose global warming and temperature rises and changes in the temperature are having an impact on their snow seasons. So they became, when I went there, 20 years ago for the first time, it's quite consistent. There was a consistent level of snow. Now with the temperature variations, you've got those days where it'll melt, get icy, and it feels in a lot of ways similar to Australia in those variables that the snow takes on because of the weather changes, You don't just have that consistent cold that they used to have. There's some warm days now that tend to warm things up and change. So, but that's a thrill, mate. Snowboarding is
Matt Biolos explained it to me one time as, it's like a rainforest, but it snows all the time instead of rains all the time. It's just constant rain.
Yeah,
or snow. I mean,
and the terrain it's got all those undulations and shapes. And as a surfer, you're riding along and looking at all these opportunities to hit stuff or jump off stuff.
I saw you hitting some stuff. It's a pretty cool video. I think it's on the WSL Facebook page. But
yeah,
I was stoked for you. I could tell you had a good line going.
I love the snowboarding.
You mentioned 1989, and this is a good segue because as you, of course, know better than anyone, 1988 was a huge year for you in your professional career. That year, there was 3 of you guys, right, heading into Hawaii for a world title showdown. It was Damien Hardman and perhaps arguably the best surfer in the world at that time, Tom Carroll, and yourself. And it's coming down to it. And as I recall, and I've done a little bit of research on this, coming into pipe, like I said, all 3 of you guys had a shot at it. And I guess I read somewhere that during the warm-up session, the very first wave you caught, you cut off Tom Carroll. And I'm wondering if that was a planned thing, or was it just like how much of that is like you trying to go Kelly Slater psych job on your competitor?
Oh, maybe all of it. So that and the lead up, that's right. There were the 3 of us in the world title race. The year before, 87, going into the last event, there'd been 5 of us involved as well, and Tom Carroll and Gary 𝐿𝐻𝐻𝐿 were involved with Tom, Damien, and I, and Martin Potter actually that year. So there were 6 of us in a chance the year before, 3 of us that next year. It was kind of the usual characters or customers for us, you know what I mean? There were those guys who were dueling for world titles, and you knew you're up against it. I think the comment that Tom Carroll was arguably, I think he said, the best surfer in the world is correct. And if you were to say that he was arguably the best surfer in the world, at Pipeline, you'd be incorrect, because he was the best at Pipeline, and so we all knew we were up against it going into an event at Pipeline with Tom Carroll, in that race, and with the amount of support and emotional, he was going to be the first surfer to have ever lost a world title and re-win it. Was the storyline. And so we all knew we were up against it. And I remember seeing Tom Carroll with a helmet and going, well, if he's got a helmet and I've got to do better than him and throw myself, I better get a helmet quick, mate. And we went into Dad, just started scrambling, trying to find myself a helmet of any, and I ended up with it was like a bicycle stack hat from the 90s, but it was something that you had that gave you that sense of, well, if he's thrown himself over and he needs one, and I'm going to throw myself over even more than he is, I need one and I've got one, so let's go. And in the lead up to that event, there'd been no swell. It was one of the flattest Triple Crowns in history. And there'd been, none of us had surfed Pipeline, hadn't broken, you know what I mean? It had broken at 2 to 4 foot. And so we were just waiting for that day. And then the day arrived, and that morning was the first morning of game on. And yeah, I paddled out, and I remember paddling out, and Tom was there, and he was turning. I just went, not today, buddy. I just took off and stuffed him on one. And then I paddled back out, and 10, 20 minutes later, Dave 𝐒𝐿𝐴 stuffed me on one. And I got my board to the thigh, hit my quad and bruised my quad, and And I limped out of the water going, oh, not today, not today. And I had this injury all of a sudden that had to take my attention and my focus, and I had to look after that thing and make sure I was able to walk and able to surf.
Well, let me ask you this. When you paddle back out after stuffing TC, are you, like, are there words between you guys, or is it just silence, or like what happens in the lineup when you paddle back out?
You know how many people Tom Carroll stuffed in his life?
I'm one of them.
And you're not alone. So it's one of those ones where you live in glass houses, you don't throw stones maybe. And so I think we all just knew, you know, that was a different time of life, a different time in the world. And it was a much rougher, much tougher, much suck it up princess and get on with life type of an environment. And the Pro Tour at that point in time, it wasn't a place for the weak of heart. The games that say Shaun Tomson, Mark Richards, Rabbit Bartholomew, Shane Horan, and that generation that were in front of us, the way they would protect what was theirs, helicopter, because there wasn't enough to go around at that point in time. You know, there was, you know, you're at a buffet, but there's not enough for everyone in the restaurant.
Yeah.
Right. And you either sit back and let other people go to the buffet and hope they leave you something, or you get up there and start elbowing your way through the crowd and take some of that buffet so you eat. And it was that kind of world. Pro surfing was that kind of world. And the generation we grew up with in front of us, they weren't opening too many doors. They were trying to keep doors closed. They were trying to keep you out of things, mate. Coast Guard. You know what I mean? And they were trying to prolong their time at the trough.
That's funny. So they busted down the door and then they closed it on you.
Yeah, that's right. Well, they busted down the door for themselves, opened it up, got themselves in, and then went, okay, you know, no one else coming in. And that's, you know, it's human nature. There's nothing wrong with it.
Well,
I was never offended by
about,
it. We went to play the game that we played as hard as we could play it. We weren't playing it.
And did you despise Tom Carroll? Did you have a hatred for Tom that was like palpable?
Well, I think there was a massive rivalry there between us, and it goes back. It's an interesting story, but there was a manager in surfing called Peter Manstead, and Peter Manstead managed Tom Carroll and Martin Potter, and he managed me at a point in time, and I didn't like the guy. I didn't like his ways. And one morning we were doing some training and it kind of spilled out, and I just told him to stick it, and I was out of there. And I left that camp, right? And Peter Manstead hated me because I turned my back on him, and I knew him. And as it turned out, he worked both Martin Potter and Tom Carroll over, and they lost money. And they don't look back at his contribution to their lives in a fondly fashion. You know, they're like, wish we got out there sooner too, mate, you know. But Peter Manstead, he fueled the hatred between us and the rivalry, and Martin Potter and Tom Carroll's side of things at that point in time, he was responsible for influencing in a lot of ways. And so he would tell them, you know, I know for a fact that he would tell them lies and tell them that I'd said things and done things just to fuel that hatred between us. And so, I think it's fair to say that from my point of view, it was there in terms of jealousy. You know, you're a young kid with dreams that really no one ever has thought or believed in your dream and said you will achieve it. You know, you're out there making your dream come true regardless of the people scoffing at you essentially and going, who thinks he's going to, you know, and I tell people, you know, whether it was at career guidance at school and friends at the beach, no, I'm going to be a world champion surfer. I'm going to be a professional surfer. That's what I'm going to do. So I stick my neck out there and live on that, live and die on it, you know. And so I think there was, you know, Tom Carroll was one of the golden children of our generation. And there was some people who were the golden, you know, you call it Tom Carroll, Tom Curran, Mark Occhilupo, essentially would be the golden children of our generation being looked after, sponsored, big money, great support. Those companies are dictating to the media, dictating to the ASP, wielding their muscle around the surfing industry, and they're their kids, they're their babies that are the front men of their sales team, you know what I mean? And so then there was the rest of us out there fighting the golden children to take a bit of what was on their table to feed ourselves. So I'm sure there was jealousy in it from my point of view, looking at those, particularly those three. And then there were different attitudes. You know, there was Martin Potter and Gary Elkerton had that kind of rock and roll, you know, big characters, big egos, big, you know, big characters to confront in the heat. And so there were all these, I think they were just this incredibly classic cast of characters. It was like going to the circus, and the cast of characters in the show in our generation were just great characters, mate. Fantastic characters. And it was a great show. The ringleaders at the time weren't necessarily that open-minded. They weren't really that, they wouldn't listen to us. Didn't matter what we thought. They had their ideas about what the sport was, and they were going to build a sport by creating scores and math, by going to city beaches, putting up bleachers, creating a sporting environment, and having this sport take play, which was it had to happen. Professional sport was booming. It was a way for people to quantify surfing into something tangible as a product and market it. The founding fathers before me didn't want to go to work. They actually almost sort of manifested this sport into being. That's, you know, Robert Bartholomew's, the generation before us, and then the Hawaiian generation before that, Australian pro surfing generation. Those two generations kind of created this pro surfing opportunity because it didn't exist before then. And we didn't, people, I don't want to go to work. I want to go to the beach every day of my life. You know what I mean? And they were the same, and they created this pro surfing thing out of that desire. We inherited it. It was at the point where it had grown really well, and that idea, it was working, except we were at a point where we were heading into a multimedia age, and the best surfers in the world were surfing the worst waves in the world. And the product looked rubbish.
Yeah.
And we were starting to lose credibility because free surfers who maybe could or could not have made it onto our tour were going out and getting photos in great waves. The magazines were promoting and looking at the free surfing movement as being more valuable than our movement. And we had to put our foot down with the ASP and with their management and make them change direction and make them take the best surfers in the world to the best waves in the world and create the amazing product we see today. You know what I mean?
Do you mean like Ian Cairns? Like, was it at that time? Was it who was it that was sort of moving it towards a commercial product that wasn't necessarily viable in the long haul, according to you guys, the surfers?
Ian Cairns and ASP took over from IPS. You know, Randy Rarick, Fred Hemmings, and IPS, then into Ian Cairns and that generational ASP time, and then there was that change of the tour and a change in things where Graham Cassidy was the CEO and Peter Burness was the president. And Graham Cassidy and Peter Burness were individuals who weren't involved with companies. They were freestanding individuals, but they weren't listening to us and moving towards taking the best surfers to the best waves in the world. And so then we conducted a coup. And the surfers on the executive board of the ASP, we understood the game, of which I was one, and we understood the game. We talked to the other side. We said, hey, we're removing management. They're not listening.
Who was it? Who were these surfers besides yourself that plotted this coup?
Richard Marsh was on the coup, Mitch Thorson. I can't remember that there was, 6 of us on the board at the time.
A Hawaiian? Was there a Hawaiian on there, like Sonny or Schmucka?
I can't. Maybe Sonny might have been on there at the time.
Yeah,
I know Sonny spent some time on the board. We're going back, mate. But it was, and I know I kind of took somewhat of a leading role in things. And we went to that meeting knowing that we had the votes to win that when we dropped that bomb, and the bomb was dropped, and in the end the vote came down 13-1. For the removal of them, and then we put Graham Stapleberg in there as an interim CEO, while our plan was to advertise the position, find some top quality people who could see our dream and take it to the marketplace and try and elevate the sport to another level. And I suppose the people who were trying to orchestrate that were also surfing on that tour.
Yeah.
And so it was a precarious situation to be trying to run something and help something to grow and change and evolve at the same time as feed yourself and compete on it. As it
conflict
turned out,
of interest type of
yeah,
thing.
well, like, there was a not so much a conflict of interest, because you're kind of working for the big picture. It wasn't, you know, for you to win a heat. You know what I mean? It didn't work.
Right.
You know, it wasn't that, didn't trickle down that far. But as it turned out, I suppose the company saw that the lunatics were running the asylum.
Yeah.
And there was a void in management at that point in time, and an opportunity for those companies that were the big companies in surfing at that time to step in, put people on that board who represented their interests, and more or less those companies took the ASP over at that point in time and put in some, you'd almost call puppet administration, really, to achieve the goals that were bigger picture wanted by those three companies, and it became their tool, you know, of promotion for the next decade or so. And that, for me, that was always, I don't know, felt like unfinished business. It felt like I'd started something, I didn't finish it properly, and it got sort of railroaded in another direction that you would have most probably been better off staying on the direction you were.
Yeah.
But as it turned out, with WSL coming in, and, you know, the changes in the sport, you look at it and you go, well, they're all just little chinks in the evolution of the sport to get to where it is, you know?
You know, let me throw a hypothetical at you, if I may. And I don't mean, I'm not trying to put you on the spot or anything, but if the current world tour was to fade away for whatever reason, the one that's now in existence, and the surf world had to reimagine or replace a world tour, are there individuals or an individual who has the best resume to lead a new professional surfing world tour? Are there some names that you could throw out there and go, oh, he might be good, and I could throw some at you myself, Barton, and maybe get some feedback from you? I'm thinking of names like, and by the way, I don't know a lot of these guys. I just see them through, you know, watching WSL. So I don't know them the way you do. Right. I'm going to throw out a name, Jake Patterson.
Yeah, I mean, Jake Patterson is a great character and a great person. He's a good.
Could he lead a new world tour, though? Could he lead a new world tour?
Could Jake Patterson lead a new world tour? So I suppose the person that needs to lead this world tour, what their skill set, what they have to be able to do, because you can't do everything, and you're not an expert in everything, but you need experts around you. So what you're relying on in terms of, with that question, because it's quite a general, broad question, is you're relying on a sergeant or a leader of that group or organization who can corral and bring together great people in great areas, who then come together, and the leader's job is to manage that group of individuals for the better of the big picture. And that takes sensitivity. And
how about you?
No, I don't know that I'm sensitive enough. I feel like, you know, my
how about Sean Doherty?
I mean, Seano's working down there with Surfrider Foundation at the moment. So he's one of those guys. Sean Doherty's one of those guys who has heart. So back to Jake. I'm wondering whether Jake has those as a competitor and as a, let's call ourselves mongrel Aussie competitors.
Yes.
We don't often listen that well. We don't often. We're used to rowing that boat. Yeah. You know what I mean? And when you're used to rowing the boat on your own, and it's hard for you to allow other people to take the paddle and row it.
Maybe he's more of a commissioner or something.
Yeah, I feel like he's like me a bit, where you know, that ability to bring together and that stuff, but maybe we might not have the sensitivities that are needed for operating a massive multinational tour across different cultures, different religions, different environments, and all of those sensitivities that exist. You need to be a very special type of person to be able to handle, to consider. Doug Lees? Dougie Lees, again, these are people who have shown their passion, and Sean Doherty too, and love of surfing for a very long time, and then stepped into into administrative roles with charity organisations, Doug with Surf Aid, Sean with Surfrider Foundation. So the respect is obviously there for the environment, for the sport. They love what we are. They love what we do. They want to contribute to it in a broader way. So there's definite potential there for those people. I feel like coming from the media. Who?
Claude Warbrick.
I would say no. Well, or I could cheekily say that in a way he already has.
Very, very good point.
So, so I suppose coming from the media into professional sport, you've got that understanding of the compromises that may be needed, because as in media, you are influenced by your advertisers. Yep. I don't know that there is a media outlet that just does exactly what they want and says what they want, and then their advertisers give them money still.
Yeah, if they're out there, they're not making any money.
Mate, if we had to look at, I don't know, if we had to look at some of our, if we had to look at the perhaps two major news sources in the mainstream world, and the perhaps compromise and the perhaps decisions around whether this is news or not, and whether people see it or not. Those compromises that media have lead me to wonder about people that come out of that industry into that other role, and whether those compromises that they're used to making along the way compromise other parts of your contributions. You know what I mean? I don't know if that makes sense. But
it does.
Like the media is compromised. The media is compromised in its premise, just as it is, because if you make your money off advertising, then you need to listen to them, and you're compromised. And that we see that in our mainstream world today more than we've ever seen it, I imagine, in my opinion. I watch mainstream news and I kind of am disgusted, because I don't know that the truth gets out. It doesn't seem like the truth gets out. An agenda gets out, but not the truth. And finding the truth in the modern world we live in is a really hard thing. Yeah. And that is a tangent from your question. Let's go back to it.
Well, look, I think there's a lot of names that we could throw out there and go, hey, maybe it's a conglomeration of all of these guys. I don't know. Another name I'm going to quickly throw out there that is an interesting one to me is Bob Hurley.
Well,
he's a sensitive guy. He's a business guy. He's good. He's like above all the fray, or at least you could argue that he is.
No, he's well, and he I would say that of the names you've suggested, I mean, and obviously Pato is a beauty, and we love Pato. I suppose he lost his commentary roles for a line that he and Damien Fahrenheit made, perhaps around gambling on surfing, perhaps, and they something slipped out that was inappropriate in a moment, and taken offense of, and he lost his job commentating. They're the sensitivities I'm talking about. So to be in that mainstream thing, and that's where I would be in that job. I'd say something stupid at some point. This thing would just open and something would come out, and I wouldn't even know. I didn't mean it. I didn't even know it was coming out, and all of a sudden it's out there and people are there, and I go, oh my gosh. So Bob is the type of character who has the experience, the sensitivities and the emotional side to be able to consider people's sensitivities and understand where other people are coming from as much as he understands where he's coming from. And he also has the commercial experience. And I would think he's completely sort of unbiased. Bob's for surfing, mate. Yeah, Bob lives for, that's how I feel. Bob, and he's been a great supporter for me. He's really helped turn my life around, and done some amazing things together and with his company when he was involved. And so I feel like he is one of those guys who can
here's the thing too, Barton, is that if in this world, this thing has basically devolved. It's a mess. It's a shambles. We've got no tour. There's, that's the environment that we're in. That's the context that I'm giving you. So in many ways, it almost needs a guy like an Ian Cairns, like somebody that's like, look, I'm the leader here. I'm the alpha, and you're going to follow me because it's all you got. And we need to string together some Hawaii contests with some Australian contests and guns, or, the South J Bay and something in wherever. And we got to glom it together just to kind of get the ball rolling for a couple of years. At that point, then maybe we put in somebody that's got a little bit more sensitivity, some more commercial viability.
I mean, I'd like to, how do you, when now you reflect on what the tour was as entertainment and as a sport, what did you think of it?
Well, my feeling is first is that as an end user, it needs to be trimmed way down.
Right.
I only want 24 surfers, if that.
Do you?
I hate to
Do
go
you?
back to
Yeah.
the top 16. And now I know that doesn't help the labor pool at all.
Exactly.
But as an end user, I want to see the top 16. I just
Right.
want to see the best guys. And there's this UFC argument that, hey, I wouldn't mind just seeing John and Gabriel at 𝐂𝐴𝐽𝐸 for 5 hours, and I'll pay to watch it. So there's a bunch of different models out there, and you know, so as an end user, I don't have too much time for an all-day event.
Yes. And I mean, from my, because I was there, you know, when I was on that ASP board, I did a decade on that board, and the goal was to get more jobs and to create jobs. And there was an upper class and a lower class. And our goal was to build a middle class. You know what I mean? To create jobs for surfers, to have more of us, not less of us.
Yeah.
And so from a surfer's point of view, when they went from top 44 down to top 32, and people lost their jobs, it hurt me. I hated it because it's actually a decision made on money. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's about a commercial product. So it really hurt me. But, and I know that what you're saying is, that's an idea and a thing it is being thrown around and bounced around, I suppose. In the end,
another idea.
Model. I thought the thing, personally, I don't have time to watch them all day either. And when I'm not commentating, I'm not watching. I don't sit there all day and watch. Yeah. I tune in for moments, you know, or have it in the background playing while I'm actually doing what I got to do. And then, you know, every 10 minutes you'll turn around and watch a wave and then go back to what you're doing and have it in that background. And it's kind of, it's like cricket for us. Might be like baseball. I don't know. It's kind of like they're in the background and you're doing your stuff. But
well, that's a great segue, Barton, because I want to bring up this thing. Okay. Somebody sent me an email that I think is fascinating, and I agree with it. Okay. And he basically said, what if the Australian government purchased or took over pro surfing and ran it as a nonprofit? Because when you mentioned cricket, I've lived in Australia for a little bit, so I get it. Right. The sporting culture there is incredible. And if you know Mick Fanning in Australia, it's like knowing, you know, Patrick Mahomes here, or one of the big sports stars here in the U.S. Right. It's a big deal in Australia. And the Australian government would get behind it, and the populace would get behind it. And oh, by the way, if you talk to certain folks, and I agree with some of this, the Australians really kind of invented pro surfing in some regard. I know Fred and Randy had a big chunk in it, but there's something to be said that what happened in Australia in the early 70s regarding how they stitched together a point system and all of that. I just think that the Australian government deserves, I think the nation state of Australia deserves the chance to run professional surfing as a nonprofit with no return on investment expected other than to keep the ball rolling.
And that's, you know, that non-profit and pressure being applied to the sport to make a profit, or to create a profit situation is most probably because that's one of those things I always wondered about the evolution of WSL is, you know, a governing body of a sport. I suppose then advertises and promotes that sport and uses individuals in that sport as a part of that promotion and advertising that is actually helping or giving advantage to those people over the other people they're not using and promoting for advertising. And so there's this interesting place where a sports governing body as a business gets to, doesn't it? Where it's talk about fine line and sensitivities. That's kind of right there. And the thing that I have noticed and I see is that WSL, they care about them surfers and respect those surfers and ask their opinions and have them engaged and involved on so many levels and in so many things that it constantly surprises me. Because I came from a time where they didn't care. You weren't asked anything. You were told. If you didn't like it, you get booted into that line, you know, in that old school way. And to see the respect that they bring to it is to the surfers and to the sport is amazing, you know, and we could look at equal prize money. We could, you know, I don't know about you, but I love watching the women's. Yeah. No, the women's side of the sport is amazing. Surf. Yeah. So there's so much good. color numbers is hard for me to go with, because I feel for the people who then don't have a job. But if you've got, you know, the Challenger Series, as it's been termed, I just feel like when I look back at it and don't have it and they're not there, I thought the tour was pretty damn good. I really liked it. I look back with it fondly and go, that was pretty sick, mate. How's the performances? How's the crowds that they were getting at events, and the energy and the whole thing? And so to be a part on the commentary team and kind of telling the stories and painting the pictures and stuff, I look back at it really fondly, and my mind, every time I hear the word new normal, I'm offended. Yeah. I heard the word new normal at the very start, almost in the very immediate news reports, and go, okay, so that's a part of this thing, is that there is going to be some new normal. If it was up to me, mate, I'm going back to the old one. Yeah. I'm going, the viruses exist. We know we live with the threat from all sorts of things. There's a lot of threats to our existence that you don't seem to care about as much as you do this virus, and we'd really like some balance in how you care. And it'd be great if we could address the plastics. It'd be great if we could address the chemical load on our bodies and the cancer epidemic we live in. It'd be great if we could address some of these other things with the same authority and the same sort of approach as we are the virus. And let's really take care of some of those threats to us globally and to our environment, to our existence. That'd be wonderful. And just go back to the way things were, if you don't mind. The way things were really cool. So I have that romantic sense about the tour too. You know, I was like, just go back. It was sick as it was. You know,
I just scratched you off my list, by the way. Speaking of going back, I want to go back to that 1988 Pipe Masters where we sort of started this conversation. So and it wasn't the Pipe Masters, actually. It was the Billabong Pro, right? It wasn't a Pipeline Masters.
It's one of the heartbreaks of my life. Is that, and is that, you know, I have to correct people. They go Pipeline Masters, and I go, well, it wasn't actually Pipeline Masters, it was Billabong Pro. So, you know, but I did win a Pipeline, you know. And,
yes, you did.
So that was one of those things. And that year, the Pipe Masters, that was the year I believe Robbie Page won Pipe.
Exactly.
And it was
at 𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻𝐿, down at 𝐿𝐻𝐿𝐻.
Yeah. Well, and it was, you know, 2-4, and I made semis. In that, and I had some good results at Pipe, but never won the Pipe Masters, and that's one of them ones that,
no one knows. Everyone thinks you won the Pipe Masters.
I know. I feel obliged to mention it myself, and then sometimes you go, nah, just let it slide. Feels good. Let it slide. They said it, not me. You know.
Hey, speaking of the Billabong Pro, in '86. By the way, I was looking through your results. I didn't see any results on the WSL site in 1986. Were you injured?
Oh, yeah. No, I was there in 1986. I think so I went 13th, 83, 13th, 8th, 2nd. That was 83, 84, 85. And 86, I dropped back to 12th. Okay. And I had what was, you know, one of the great learning experiences, but one of the worst, most emotional experiences of my life, going from, you know, 2nd in the world to 12th in the world, and thinking I went, you know, I was like 13th first year. Yeah, this is good. 8th, oh, this is kind of easy. 2nd, this is actually easy. Yeah. This isn't this hard. We're number 2 in the world. Imagine if and this is what I thought, imagine if I train. Because as a young kid, I trained, you know, and worked, but training back then was a different idea. And, you know, I'm kind of more of the Michael Ho, just go surfing school. Yeah. And surfing's your training, and your time in the water is your training, and that's the best training, and just go surf. Yeah. And I thought, if I train to get from that 2nd to number 1, I started training with some triathletes, the fittest I'd ever been. I was seeing sports psychologists. They had me filling in questionnaires before I surfed with you know, ABC answers. How do you feel before the surf? A, nervous. B, confident. C, stressed. Or, you know what I mean? I'd be like, oh, how do I feel? Oh, I'm nervous. Okay, A. You know, and I was filling in these forms, doing this sports psychology, training the house down like a madman. I was so fit. I was actually on the max VO2 tests and stuff. I was out training these triathletes that I was training with and having better results on the max VO2 tests. And then I went out there and just failed dismally. Oh, there's something that comes with expectation. And if you're training with the expectation and you're training for the result,
Right.
It doesn't really work. You got to be training because you know it's good for you as a soul and as a body,
Right.
and it's something that's good for your life, not so that you will win. And the only reason you're doing it, and there was a lot of learning in that year, and I went to 12th, and then I came back that next year and was, came out of the blocks the very next year, and in those first,
I think you won 4 in a row that next year.
Yeah, I think in those first 7 events of the year, I'd made 5 finals, 3 firsts, 2 seconds, and 2 fifths in the first 7.
Yeah.
And I was miles. So I'd gone from that, absolute shocker to 12th, where I went, you know what? I'm just going back to what I do. I'm not going to worry about what the experts tell me I should do. I'm going to do what I think's right. And all of a sudden was leading the world.
Yeah. By the way, those years, I mean, you surfed, there was like 25 events those years. Did that number of events, did it help to heighten resentment against your fellow competitors? Or was there more hate because you were always fucking dealing with these guys every other weekend?
It certainly put some heat into the environment. And that's one of the things about being a competitor is, and the reason why not many people can and do it is because we lose all the time.
Yeah.
We are people that want to win more than anything in the world. We want to succeed, we want to be good, but we are willing to fail every week of our life to get to that point of being good.
Yeah.
And that's what you do. You just go out there and you put your heart on the line, you put everything you've got into these moments, and sometimes they win, sometimes they lose, but the majority of time, overwhelming majority of the time, you lose. There's only ever one winner at an event. You occasionally win. Most of the time you lose and are disappointed and have to learn to live with that disappointment, pick yourself back up, go back at it. And when there's 25 events, you have to become very good at dropping baggage and not carrying baggage.
Yeah.
You have to be able to move from one mistake to the next moment without that mistake impeding your performance in that next moment. And you became a good liver. You know what I mean? Because the lessons we learned out of that way of living set you up for the rest of your life.
When I look at world champions such as yourself,
excuse me,
bless you. Let's say like the top 10 in the world right now, let's say like Gabe and Elo and Felipe and Owen Wright and Kanoa and Slater or whoever, right? The top guys.
Yeah.
Let's say the top 10 in the world. They're all insanely talented, obviously. Yes. So to me, like any champion, at that point, it comes down to what's between your ears and really what's in your heart.
Yep.
And a great example of that, as you know, is Adriano de Souza. Not necessarily the guy I want to grow up having my kids surf like maybe not the greatest style, but this guy had heart. He was a blue collar sort of, labor surfer, and he won a world title almost by his own pure will. How much of that is important? And how much of that do you tell? I know you teach and you coach, and we're going to get into to what you're doing now. Yeah. But how much of that do you teach to these young surfers, this concept of, hey, look, once you get to this level, they're all good. And it's really about what's up here.
Totally. Well, and I've coached people who aren't willing to ask the questions of themselves, the hard questions of themselves, to understand yourself and to understand your emotional responses to situations is the key. So you imagine, and it happened to me the other morning. It became so clear to me. I'm driving along, and it was dark, and this is back in winter, last winter actually, and this car pulls out of a street in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm angry. And I'm just like, and then I see this bird flew by. I was like, oh, look at that, cool. And I was straight out of the anger, and I was like, oh, that's nice. And then the light went red in front of me because this guy, and then I felt this anger again. And then I saw on the side of the road, there was a homeless person sitting in the bus shelter, and my heart just went out, and I started thinking about them. And the realization was, and is that we live in this dynamic environment that is always changing. Constantly changing, and your emotions and your responses to those changes are happening inside of you all the time. If you're unconscious, you don't know those changes are happening. Yep. Right? If you are a conscious being, you then see something happen in front of you, you feel your emotional response, and you acknowledge the fact that you have been affected by a moment. Yep. And this is living. That awareness around your own responses to emotional situations and to the stimuli of your environment is consciousness. Without that awareness, you're not conscious. And if you're not conscious, I can play you.
Yeah.
I can walk up and go, that's not the same board you were riding yesterday, is it? And you go, yeah. And I go, great.
Yeah.
And you go, something about the board. What's going on? You're not even, and it might be it could be a change in temperature, a change in wind direction. It can be that there's so many of these subtle changes in our environment going on all the time that impact us. So the most important thing as a competitor is to have conscious awareness around yourself and your behavior and who you are and the way you respond. And it actually doesn't matter who you are and the way you respond. The only thing that matters is that you're aware of yourself and you know yourself. Because in that space, you then understand yourself, you manage yourself, you feel the responses to situations, and you're able to factor them in and present yourself to a present moment without the impact of the past.
Do you meditate?
Yes.
Because this really speaks to me of a meditative discussion. It's a discussion
That's what it is.
on this sort of
That's
thing.
exactly what it is, mate.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And do you pass this on to, now I know, look, the young guys that you're coaching, that's probably a little bit deep for them, like a 12-year-old or whatever. If you're dealing with, say, young pro surfers that are doing the Australian pro circuit or whatever, are you speaking to them on this level, and are some of them getting it?
Well, no. I fail a lot as a coach. And when I say that, I've worked with a lot of people. Yeah. Right? I've worked with, call it thousands of people over the last 20 years, from absolute beginners through to world champions. Yep. And had interaction with that whole spectrum of surfing abilities and awarenesses. And it doesn't matter what your level is, that awareness is the important thing. And you can't teach it.
No.
You can't force feed it.
No.
You can't help someone to know it when they don't know it. You know what I mean? I've tried so hard to share understanding and share that knowledge that I have, and sometimes it gets through and you change people's lives because they become aware and they're employing consciousness and awareness to their existence. And as they're walking through situations, I had a young girl who I was working with, a world title aspirant, and we came to the conclusion that she was more athlete than she was surfer. And, and I was like, on a line from athlete to surfer, where are you on that line? And she go, I'm, about here as athlete, call it 70, 80% towards athlete. And I go, I know. Surfing as a culture doesn't really like athletes, right? It likes surfers.
Yeah.
If you look at that same line, where's Steph Gilmore?
Surfer.
Right? So the awareness around your brand and who you are and where your brand sits on that line is a really important question. Simplest thing to do. But I said to her, hey, my job is to take you from athlete to surfer.
Wow, that's fascinating.
And until they represent your surfer and respect you as a surfer, you're not winning anything.
Yeah.
You've got to be respected on that line and be a surfer and a representative of an ambassador of our culture that people want to win before you'll win it.
I think that's fascinating.
So she goes to the next event. We're working in this space, and I'm trying to undo the things that her upbringing and her belief of what she had to do to be successful was that work, to be that athlete. That's what she believed she needed. Right. And I could see it completely different. I thought that was an impediment, actually, to the success that was being had. She went to the next event and she got there and she forgot her running shoes for the first time in her life.
You must have been clapping.
I was like, yes, yes. I said, go down and run the beach in the sand with no shoes on.
Yeah.
Right. And and I was so stoked that the shoes were forgotten. The professionalism and the athlete have been left behind for a moment,
Those shoes are in the back of your car.
Yeah.
You might have grabbed them.
She went down the beach, ran that beach, and ran through a flock of seagulls. She was in this visualization process that we do. And she ran through a flock of seagulls that didn't move.
Wow.
And they stayed where they were. as she ran through them. And I said that, she goes, I go, hey, that's because you were focused. They knew they didn't have to worry about you. Your energy wasn't thinking about them. Those birds are just cruising there, and they knew they had nothing to worry about. This person's deep into their stuff. We got nothing to worry about, and ran through the seagulls. They didn't move.
Wow.
And I was like, there's the sign. We're on the right path. Keep working in this space, because that's, so I have I feel like I have concepts that are hard for people to understand. I have realities I live by that are hard for people to understand. And so I'm not in the habit of sharing my philosophical beliefs about life. I'm not in the habit of sharing much of what I do or say or think, because I know that it's not that popular. And it's not that easy sometimes for people to understand me even, and what I'm thinking. And so,
well, I
the coaching space has been, just to wrap that up, the coaching space has been a almost frustrating space to work in, because you feel like you've got a lot to give. And there's questions you have to ask of yourself to develop that awareness around yourself to be successful. And if you're not willing to dig in and understand what's right and who you are and what the things about you, then, and that to me is life's journey, right? I'm still learning about myself. I ain't there. You don't get there, and you aren't right. And everyone I've coached, they just want the recipe. Just give me the recipe. Give me, and one surfer actually said to me one day, could we just concentrate on some of the low-lying fruit? And I went, hey, I don't do low-lying fruit, mate. You know what I mean? And so there's that situation as a coach where you find yourself where you could work with people and just give them what they want. Yeah. And make them happy and keep yourself employed. Or you could do it, be a stubborn mongrel and have your ideas and go, hey, well, my way or the highway. And somewhere in between there is the place where I find myself constantly trying to find those sensitivities we talked about. In running that organization, there's sensitivities in managing a professional athlete or working with a professional athlete, coaching and any athlete, even, a normal human surfer just recreationally, that has to have those understandings of them, who they are, the way they work and all of that stuff. So, I'm always changing, I'm always growing. The thing I've learned about myself in the last year, I suppose, is that I've got kind of anger issues. And maybe my dad got angry and punched something when I was a kid, a few times maybe. And I saw that behavior. And as they say that, up until around 7 years of age, life imprints itself on us like we're a cassette recorder. Right? We don't have a conscious mind. We don't have the ability to consciously decipher information and make a decision. And life prints itself on you like it's a cassette recorder. And what you see and what you're told and what happens is what it comes in without a need for whether you believe it or not. It is true to you because of your conscious evolved state at that point. And they reckon around 7 years old, you start to evolve a conscious mind that gives you the opportunity to take information and make decisions for yourself. And so I look back at my life, and my dad was we were old school. My father was a policeman in the surf club captain down at Whale Beach Surf Club. And they were the boys, mate. They were blokes. And they got together and drank beers and went swimming and lived at the beach, and they were old school blokes.
Fair dinkum.
Fair dinkum, mate, and not much sensitivity around the edges. And if you had it, you might not survive. And so you had to kind of that toughen up princess kind of mentality.
Well, when I think about your world championship, I feel like after reading, I've done some research on you, and maybe this is bullshit, I don't know, but I feel like your father passed away and you told your mom you were going to be a world champion. And I feel like at that point, and you didn't even know it maybe, but you were projecting it. That's the point that you won the pipeline event in 1989. In January of 1999 was that moment. And in many ways, it's like Rabbit. When Rabbit, was stealing and he just goes, I'm not doing this anymore, Mom, I'm going to be a pro surfer. And he kind of just went out and willed it. And I feel like that's kind of the same way with you. I feel like you were destined to be a world champion when you told your mother, because you believed it.
Well, I don't know that I ever believed it. I still have trouble believing it, mate. You know what I mean? I still, I don't sit there and go, and think I'm something, you know what I mean? I sit there and go, well, got one. No way. I'm still so
Yeah, there's
chuffed.
about 20 people that have that. I'm not sure the
Mate.
exact number, but you're very, very limited company.
I was this skinny little kid that didn't even live at the beach. That had to, you know, there was an age of innocence where we lived at Whale Beach until my father passed away when I was 11, as you said. And that was a fantastic time. And it was, you know, it was an age of innocence. And then there was like this, boom, when the world changed overnight, the world changed and you were on your own. And I remember my godfather took me out into the veranda and said, "You're the man of the house. Your father passed away last night." And I knew because I could hear my mum's crying from my bedroom.
Yeah.
When I heard my mum's tears and what was going on out in the living room, I didn't have the courage to get up and face it. I just rolled over and went back to sleep and hoped maybe I'll wake up in half and it'll be different, you know?
Yeah.
And then he said, "You know, you're the man of the house now. Your father passed away last night." It's my godfather who'd come down to the house and, you know, said, "What do you want to do? Is there anything I can do for you?" I said, "I want to go surfing. I want to go for a surf." And he took me down to Kitty's Corner at Palm Beach and I paddled out and I surfed. And I cried, and I rode a few and I cried, and I rode a few and I cried. And the ocean was where I went. That was my darkest moment, obviously, and as a young man. And that was and the ocean was there for me and it's my thing, mate.
Did you think of your father that day?
I think of my father.
In Pipeline when you won the championship that day.
You know, the Pro Tour days was most probably, in certain ways, the least sensitive I was.
Yeah.
As a human, you know, because there was no room for sensitivities, mate.
No, blinders were on.
Yeah, it was just it was all in, take it, grab it, run fast. You know what I mean? Other people are chasing you. Know, it was a semi-hostile environment, but in a old school way that I actually love. Yeah. You know what I mean? I don't look back at those days and go, "Oh, there were bullies." I was bullied. I was bullied. It was, you know what I mean? It was just the way it was. I came down when I was a kid, because I used to tell all my mates this too. I not only told mum, I told my mates, "I'm going to be a world champion surfer, mate."
Yeah.
They'd look at me and laugh. And I'd tell all the guys down at my board riders club or at the beach and they'd laugh. And I'd go to career guidance and they go, "Hey, you know, you're in year 10." And I'd be like, "Yeah, I'm not going on. I'm out of here." They go, "Well, you're not the smartest tool in the shed, you know," because I wasn't, you know, I didn't academically. I left school, I thought I was dumb. When I left school, I actually thought I was an idiot I thought I was an idiot. I thought I was dumb because of the way they treated me and the lack of respect for someone who had some gumption like I had, who knew what he was doing, didn't need their help. Yeah. You know what I mean? And they go, "You need to get trade behind you. You could be a boiler maker, cabinet maker here." So I go, "Hey, you're not hearing me. I don't need your help. I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a world champion surfer. Worry about the other kids. I'm good, mate. Just let me keep truanting like I am and going to the beach to do my work because I don't need to be here." And I would literally say it to the teacher. "I don't need to be here. I want to be at the beach. I want to get to work, mate." You know what I mean? So that Dad dying definitely put that, you know, that man of the house now. And my reaction to that was, I had two younger brothers. I've got two younger brothers, 3 years and 3 years younger again. And, my thing was that Mum's never got to worry about day. If she's got to put time into me and not them, then I'm not doing my job as man of the house. And so I've been financially independent since I was 11 years old. And I've ran my life and maintained my freedom through all means of living, you know, since that age, you know, from 11 to 57. And it's still the thing I value the most. The most important thing to me is my freedom and my ability to decide and make choices for myself, you know. Yeah. And so what a journey it's been, mate. I loved it. The Mossman years when we went to Mossman and I was, you know, we moved away from the beach and I didn't even know where I was. As a young kid, you're in the middle of the city. The city's just there. I can see the city of Sydney and I don't know where the beach is. And I saw some kids that looked like they surf at school. Yeah. And when I went to school that first day, I didn't know one human, not one. I walk into that school just alone and then I see kids that look like they surf, and months in, I've mustered the courage to go, "Hey, do you surf?" And they go, "Yeah." I go, "Where are we? Where is the beach? Where are we?" And they go, "We go down on Tuesdays after sport. Mum takes us." I'm like, "Oh, can I come? I can surf." And and then I realized that, you know, 7 miles down the road was a beach. Yeah. And all I had to do was go walk out into the road and put my finger out and hitchhike and get into a stranger's car and get down to that beach. And so every day of my life, I got in and out of 4 strangers' cars a day. Mossman, Manly, Mossman before school. Mossman, Manly, Mossman after school. Every day of my life, 4 strangers' cars. And you know, I have known the, shall we say, the perverted world of pedophilia and those sick individuals that prey on children, because I used to get preyed on. I used to, you know, there were people that would do laps of the Mossman route, picking up kids and driving to the beach as their thrill.
Oh my God.
And you would get into the car and you would know the cars. Yeah. And I would see a car coming down. There was one day I'd been there for a significant amount of time. This is quite a wild story. So my little brother and I were coming back from the beach one day, and we were in a car with a pedophile that started masturbating. Yeah. On the front seat while I was driving the car. Yeah. And, you know, we didn't come down to the last shower as kids, mate. In this world, the world I grew up in, the world I lived, when I got to the tour seemed easy. Yeah. People were soft on tour compared to the world where I grew up, mate, and the things I dealt with. And so we jump out of the car that day. At the set of lights, we had sign language. My brother knew the deal. The car stopped the lights. Out we go. I start kicking the door of that car, booting it. And the guy drives off through the red light. 3 months later, I'm on the side of the road hitchhiking, and 3 buses have gone by because I can't spend money on a bus. Can't afford that. You know what I mean? The money I've got's for food, and I've got to eat. And I used to take records. I used to take, I had an interesting way of making money, mate. I was very creative, very inventive. And now when I look back at those times, I could see myself in that kid. Who I am today, I look at it and go, it was in there. You just didn't know you were that crafty and clever, you know? Yeah. The teachers made you feel like you were an idiot, but you weren't. And I see this car pulling up, and it's the masturbator, mate. Yeah. And I've got a decision to make. Do I get in this car and get to the beach? Or do I pass this ride up and stay here for who knows how much longer? And, you know, call it 12, 13 years old, little kids, school uniform, side of the road. And I went, we're going, mate. We've got to get to the beach. I'm getting in. We've got to get to the beach. And so I jumped into the back, didn't go into the front, because the last time I was in the front right there going, oh God, you know. So I jump into the back seat and just, you know, and I was always, that's where I learned to communicate. All this waffle and gabble that comes out of here was learned getting into strangers' cars and talking to them every day of my life. Hey, I'm Barton, I'm 12, I'm going to be a professional surfer. I'm trained, this is my training. I've had people come up to me in crowds and go, I picked you up when you were a young kid and you told me you were going to do this. Congratulations, mate, you know? Oh,
that's brilliant. I love that.
And so I just got in that car, went to my happy place. I'm in the back of that thing visualizing, mate. I'm surfing. I'm getting ready. And then I get to Manly. I get out of the car, thank him for the ride, and go on my way. Yeah. But when it comes to sacrifice and when it comes to putting in and digging for what you want.
Yeah, you did it.
Yeah, I did it, mate. And I don't work with many people who do. You know, most people are.
Which kind of brings me back to that question. Like once you get to the top 10, the best surfers in the world, we're talking about mental fortitude here. Well, and gumption, moxie.
Yeah, and what they're willing to do, how far they're willing to go. Gabriel Medina. Yeah. Greatest example I've ever seen, because someone who, when we were doing it, no one knew. Yeah. No one knew you just paddled to 𝐂𝐴𝐺𝐿's inside, told him you were going right and went left. Right. No one knew that. Yeah. It wasn't seen. It wasn't there for the world to see. So the games that we got up to were much easier to live with because you live with them collectively as a group. No one knew outside the group.
Well, speaking of this, Barton, I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, not too much, but you remember Derek Hind, of course. Yes. And Derek, not that he's still with us, but his sort of scathing words and articles that he would put in. Basically, he would do a review of the top 44 every year.
Scathing, all right.
Yeah. So I'm going to ask you, is the door opening or is the door closing for a world title on these surfers? So is the door opening or is the door closing for Jordy Smith?
Great. It's a good question. And you put me on the spot and I like it. with Jordy, I feel like Jordy did the best surfing he's ever done last year, right? The best tour surfing, and I could see the time spent in Hawaii coming through in the way he was riding waves. And the best thing that Jordy's got going for him is surrender. I won in 88. One of the main reasons was because of the heartbreak of 87. We talked about the start to 87 where, 7 events in, I'm miles ahead, mate. And I'm feeling like the best surfer in the world. And Tom Curran's the world champ, and I've beaten him in the final in 𝐿𝐶𝐸𝐻, the semis at Huntington, and I'm going to take that thing. And the last event of the year is at my home break, Manly. And my dream is going to come through, and I'm going to win the world title at my home beach in front of my family and friends and prove I'm all wrong, And at that point of my own personal evolution and not being able to freaking understand myself and not manage and control myself in that hotbed of a situation I found myself in, it just, and I'm going to put, after back-to-back wins at the US Open and 𝐿𝐶𝐸𝐻, I'm putting my jersey on for my first heat at 𝐂𝐴𝐳𝐳 against 𝐁𝐚𝐫𝐭𝐨𝐧. And my sponsor, 𝐂𝐻𝐿𝐻 Aloha Surfboards at the time, came up and dropped me and said, I think it's best I don't make your boards anymore. I was riding Greg Webber's at the time, and it wasn't really, we'd had an argument after 𝐿𝐶𝐸𝐻, and he dropped me as I was putting my jersey on. And I put it on, and I paddled out to that heat, and I'm just baffled, mate. And it was blatant sabotage. Yeah. And I lost that heat to 𝐿𝐶𝐸𝐻. Oh. And it was the first time I'd lost in a first round, maybe ever, mate. Long time. I didn't lose first rounds very often,
Yeah.
And I was like, uh-oh. And the downward hill started. And I ended up, my dream scenario ended up an absolute nightmare, and I had to live it.
Yeah.
I had to, and I lived a nightmare. That next year I went out with complete surrender. I didn't even think about winning that world title in 88. Yeah. I thought I had my chance. I wasn't good enough. I missed it. I blew it, and I wasn't getting another one. It's exactly what I thought. And I didn't think the next year. I went out and I think I had 9 thirds. Yeah. And I didn't even think about the world title ever that next year. I was just heartbroken, mate.
On the beach that morning at Pipeline, you must have been thinking about the world title.
And at that point, I'd surrendered my engagement in it. You know what I mean? Like I was, and that's the key. And Jordy Smith is in the situation where he has that on his side. He's experienced surrender. He's surrendered in moments and had it turn and success follow. And they're those first, for a competitor, they're the first indications that you are the problem.
Yeah.
And you got to get out of your own way and let destiny and nature run its course with you. And if it's right, it's right. If it ain't, it ain't. And I feel like that's where Jordy is. And I would say no. I would say Jordy's a chance, mate. I would give Jordy a chance. He's got
the door's opening for Jordy, is what you're telling me. The door's opening for Jordy.
The door's been open because people want him to win. People respect his surfing. He's someone who, if he does win, there won't be anything backlash, any weird stuff, nothing at all ever. Because people, he's one of those people that you go, yeah, give him one, mate, sure.
No shit.
Yeah. He's in that. So when you've got that, because you've got to remember, winning a world title is an energetic organism on its own. And it takes the collective energy of the world to make it happen. It ain't just happening to you on that beach surfing your heat and those judges judging it.
Yeah.
Those spectators on the beach, everything there's a lot of energetic things that come together to make destiny happen in that form.
Couldn't it be argued though with Jordy that he's basically at the back end of his career? We've got 2021. We don't even know if there's going to be a tour in 2021. I mean, we think there is, but who knows?
No, that's right.
And I would suggest to you that the door's closing, and that doesn't mean that he's not going to win one. Yeah. But it seems to me the door's been wide open for about 8 years, and for whatever reason, it hasn't sealed the deal.
I would say that, except for the fact that Kelly has redefined the parameters of performance to a degree that are beyond all of our comprehension. No one thought that someone of that age could compete with kids of that youth, and perhaps he can't unless the waves allow him to. Right? There's certain conditions he can't compete with them. Could call it 3-foot surf ranch Felipe and whatever it is. There's certain conditions Kelly can't. But if the conditions come together and Mother Nature has it in mind and thinks it's a good thing.
So Kelly's on this list. So you're saying, is the door open or closed for Kelly? Is it closing or is it open?
Closing.
Like I'm giving you some latitude.
No closing. So Jordy, I say for Jordy, I say it's closing, but it's not. It's in my mind, it's still way open, and you put yourself in there with a chance, and every single one of us collectively would be stoked, and that in itself, that grassroots, ground level.
Well, what's fascinating too is this concept that you brought up about surrender, right? This is Zen-like quality, which we can tie into Kelly with letting go, that letting go moment where he just let go of it, and all of a sudden he's winning titles again.
That's what
Here's
happens.
another name for you.
Yes,
𝐂𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐸. 𝐂𝐻𝐸𝐻𝐸. Is the door opening or is the door closing on a world title for 𝐂𝐻𝐸?
The door is opening for 𝐂𝐻𝐸. And I don't know him personally. You know what I mean? There's, there's people like Jordy Smith has my trophy from winning the Durban whatever. I can't even remember what event it was, right? The Durban whatever, when he was, because his dad Graham was friends of ours, mate. We'd hang with G, and we'd get to town and G and come and and he'd come in and make sure we got what we need, and if we G was there for us. Graham, Jordy's dad, so he's got a trophy that I left at his house when he was 2 years old. Jordy. Of mine, so I feel like when I look at him, there's that evolution of self that the tour will teach. You've seen the lessons it gives people throughout their lives. It's a personal development course. That's what I say. And you when you're out there and you're living and exposing yourself to failure so willingly and so consistently, that for the sake that one day you want to win, it's only those who keep asking the questions and aren't too comfortable with their existence outside of that get there, right? My concern is what level of comfort does 𝐂𝐻𝐸 have in his life and around him and with everything? How badly does he need it? How badly does he want it? And that will be the thing that keeps the door open or not, is his personal desire to keep delving into self, delving into it, keep risking, keep chancing,
I would suggest to you that that's some of the issues with Jordy early on, was that he was just simply given too much too soon.
100%. Yeah. And I would say that, with most of the people I work with, they're in that situation where it's pretty comfy and the results don't really matter besides your ego.
Right.
And if you can handle the insult to your ego for a day or two until you get over that scar, then it's fine again. It's fine again. But the people that win, we'll keep going through the list though.
Okay, here's one for you. Chloe and Dino.
That's a good one. 𝐂𝐻𝐸 and we have worked together, and he's a good mate, and some people
come at it objectively. Derek Hind always came at this objectively. I need you to be objective. Closing or opening? Well,
I think that he needs. It depends how important it is. It's very, very similar to 𝐂𝐻𝐸's in that.
I think it's closer to Jordy's, actually. Too much too soon. And why do I need a world title anyway? I can just put up an Instagram edit and be good.
Well, and you're getting paid and you've made millions of dollars and money's in the bank. Your future's maybe secure anyway. And the only thing you've got to deal with is whether your ego can handle the losing. Yeah. Or the not having achieved of that moment.
Right.
And whether the likes and the posts and the sponsorship and the media and the adulation from your environment is enough.
Opening or closing?
That's up to him. For 𝐂𝐻𝐸, that's 100% up to him. He can open that thing.
You just bailed out on this. I need you to make a commitment.
No, it's because I know him.
Yeah.
It's because I know him. And
that sounds like closing.
No. Well, it's the thing's there, and the wind's blowing, and it's going either way in the wind, right? Okay. In the wind, and the 𝐂𝐻𝐸 who grows and evolves into himself, into the man who he is, will determine that outcome. It's got nothing. I feel like for 𝐂𝐻𝐸, it's a very personal thing, and it's him. Yeah. And he's got a lot of stuff around him. There's been a lot of expectation, a lot of stuff for a long time.
Yeah, similar to Jordy.
For a long time. And so they are very similar when you put it in that context, like you said. So for me, I would say that he can blow that thing open, and it just takes that there's some hard questions that need to be asked around your desire. Yeah.
How about this one?
That was a hard one because my relationship with him and friendship, and when our coaching got confused, and then after the fact he came up to me a few months later And I've had people I've coached who have never spoken to me again since we stopped coaching.
Wow.
Where you don't even know why you stopped.
Oh, right. They just stopped
and you
calling
go,
you.
They just, and you go, wow, maybe that's why, because they're not they're not accountable for their action. They're not making you accountable. I don't care about the relationship and the fact that it's wrong. I'm doing what from my heart, trying to help. And if they don't like something, to me, it's like, hey, you said this and that sucked, and that's why. And you go, sweet, you know? But when you just walk and don't say anything and that relationship is left unopened, they're the ones where, or you lose respect for the individual, because they're not the accountability that you are trying to bring to their life. And awareness to their emotional state hasn't even got in, and they've just gone,
yep.
And the fear has made them close down and go, no, so
the recipe's not working.
Yeah. And brother's not like that. Brother came up to me and went, hey, I just want to say thanks for everything you did for me, mate.
He seems like a very sweet guy.
He is, mate.
By the way, all of these guys you and I want them the best and to win.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
How about this one?
I see
Jack
the strength
Robinson.
Who?
Jack Robinson.
Oh, yeah. I'm all about
opening
that.
Or closing a world title.
That thing is closed. He will rip that thing open.
Yeah.
When he went, and he's.
Can he win at snapper?
Yeah. Yeah, he can win at snapper. I mean, I've said to Trevor, his father, I said, hey, do you want a bit of advice? Can't help but doing it. And I go, it's like one of them things, Hey, I've been thinking this thing. I've done, I've leaned over a back seat on a flight from Margaret River where John was behind me and we'd never met. And I'd had things in my mind that I wanted to say to John.
Yeah.
Like, one of them was, hey, if you, and I just kind of climbed over the back of the seat and looked over the back and went, hey, you don't know me. My name's Barton. Nice to meet you. But I've been thinking these things and I just want to tell them. I feel like it's destiny and now I'm meant to tell you these things. Yeah. And I was like, the only heats you lose are the ones where you fall on those first couple of rides, right? If you go out there and if you create as a discipline and a religion in yourself, free surfing and contest-wise, that you will complete the first 2 waves you surf, every heat, every surf, forever, and create a religion of that within yourself, you will never lose. You will go out there. And he goes, so what, surf them safe? I go, no. Just don't fall. You know what I mean? I don't care how you surf them. Don't surf them safe. By saying don't fall, don't mean,
go
like
straight.
Just finish the first 2 you make every single time. Create a habit of that in yourself. So every heat you surf, you're finishing your first 2 and getting a couple on the board. Then go from there. Change your life, mate. So
what do you make of that heat he had with Zeke Lauer? Zeke kind of got aggressive, so to speak. And I know it's nothing compared to the days when you were on tour, but it seemed to rattle John a little bit. Do you recall?
No, definitely.
Yeah.
How do you think I'm competing against John?
Yeah. I can go right up to him and going,
mate. It depends how important it is to you. And if the criticism of other people impacts you more than the success, and you are not willing to do what it takes to win because of the judgment of others, voila. You've got to lose the fear of the judgment of others.
Jack Robinson, doors wide open, you're saying?
No, so Jack Robbo, and so I said to Trev, mate, don't show me any more box. Don't show me any more good waves. Don't show me any more tubes. We know he can do that. The thing that none of us know is how you surf in small waves. If I was you and I was advising your camp, all I would be doing is showing small wave surfing, and I would be picking the best stuff I've got in 3 foot and under, and I would be showing the world that for the next couple of months and making sure those judges understand that you have everything. You're not just one end of town, you're everything. And then that will create the balance to the brand and to what Jack brings. And the results will come more flowingly if you make them understand that you've got that, because we don't know he's got that. You just ask the question.
Yeah, that's fascinating.
So I told Trev that, mate. I said, hey, we need to know the other side. The thing I love about Jack.
Didn't he move to the Gold Coast too?
Well, he went there. He's over there because the events were going to be there. And so you had to do a quarantine. So get in there, be there early for that, But the thing I love the most, you saw him win Sunset last year.
Loved it.
Like, he was getting backdoor barrels inside Sunset and making it look like, and of all the kids here on the North Shore, or all the people maybe visiting surfers, the person, you know, and I'm here all winter pretty much, the person I've surfed the most with is Jack Robinson.
Yeah.
And Jack surfs Sunset all the time because he knows it's important. He knows it's culturally important. The depth of awareness, the depth of understanding, the depth of character and individuality in Jack Robinson is that of a champion.
Absolutely.
And that kid's
a tiger.
When he got on the
topics real quick to you.
No, can I just finish
brought
this?
Up Sunset. Yeah, go ahead.
So when he finished Sunset and he was on the stage, he didn't celebrate. There was no. He was like, "No, I'm ready. No, I'm ready." And all he said when they asked him, all he reacted was, you know, he was stoked on his win. He knew it was a good thing, but he knew that was only the start. He just got to the show. He wasn't going to celebrate because he's in the show. Yeah. He just got there. He knew the work was only just starting. And in every comment he made, he said, "I'm ready. No, I'm ready. We're ready. We're ready to go." And that's what he said. And I went, now there's a kid who that I believe in, because it wasn't a big deal, mate. It was one step in a long road to the top that he was willing to travel, and he wasn't going to get excited about one win and start celebrating. He was looking at the future. I went, "Oh, that's a good kid, man. He knows what's up, mate." So yeah, wide open.
Okay, I've kept you for an hour and a half here. I need to get you your space. I love this. A couple more. Let me touch real bit quick though on Sunset Beach, because I have a thing about, I believe Sunset Beach should be on the WCT. I think it's important for all the culture, for all the reasons that Jack Robinson showed you.
Yes. And
it needs to be proper sunset. Like, you can't just sit on the inside bowl. You got to take off outside or you get half scores.
Yeah.
How do you feel about the CT, Sunset Beach stop mandated on the CT? And I know Triple Crown be damned.
Well, I'm kind of with you. I'm with you on the sort of cultural, historical, and its place in surfing, what it means to us in surfing. And you've got your high performance down the road at Pipeline, and you've got your Chopus where you've got crazy barrels, and you've got the right barrels at J-Bays. And Sunset Beach is one of those ways, and the reason it's my local, you know what I mean? It's like where I surf in this time of year every day, pretty much. And it's got more faces, more complexions, more emotional dispositions than any other wave you'll surf. Yeah. And it's so challenging. And there's that little, so you've got the West Peak out here that comes in on that angle, right? And then it kind of hits here and then swings back and then goes across this way. And there's that little horseshoe saddle in there where you can sit, dart out, sit, dart out, sit, dart out. And
I've done that so many times.
I know. And it's kind of a coward's corner type approach to kind of heading out the back. And you can head out it's where the best tubes are, and it's where given the current state of judging and the way they look at what is considered good surfing, it's encouraged them to play that line.
Yeah.
The way the appreciation for surfing Sunset has kind of changed what is considered good and bad dramatically from what you're talking about, and the West Peak and the big board and trying to line this ocean up, and, you know, to that little saddle.
I'm going like this.
Yeah. And he was a master out there. And so, yeah, I'd love to see it on the tour. And I think it's one of those waves that has its place. I do think that Triple Crown as an entity, and
I know it's important. There's got to be a work.
No, I don't.
We need to have both, right?
Well, I don't know. How many people do all three? Not many, mate. Well, there's only a handful of people who do all three who are in with a chance at Triple Crown.
Yep.
70% of people don't do all three, most probably, in and around that. So I think they're telling us that, and while it's obviously got an incredible history and such a rich part of surfing, the Triple Crown, if all things have got to change, having 𝐿𝐸 at the start, at the earliest time of the season, doesn't make sense.
No.
Right? You could almost have sunset.
Right?
You almost have sunset before 𝐿𝐸, then 𝐿𝐸, then pipe. If you wanted 𝐿𝐸 to do its muscle up too, kind of in a way, because it's a wave that's got its thing. So, but if you just went to two events, I mean, there's always the old one event and mobile, but and the mobile events when they had them, and you might have had to surf Sunset, Pipeline and Waimea to win. the Billabong Pro.
By the way, I want you to talk to me about real quick the 1986 Billabong Pro. Did you surf Waimea that day?
Yeah, I surfed Waimea that day.
It
was heavy, mate. And we were, you know, we've been on a tour that's in 1 foot waves around the world, and then you're at, you know, there were some people that didn't surf that day and chose not to paddle out in their heats.
I know.
I had a heat. How was my heat? Rabbit Bartholomew, Shane Horan, and Richard Schmidt.
Oh shit, that's a final.
That was a big, and the little skinny fella. I was like, oh, this is. Those closeout sets came through in the morning and just washed through. And I watched Alex Salazar. I thought he was going to die, mate. He's stuck in that inside short. Oh, so that was a big day. And those they're the sort of days that, you know, you remember. That was a really fantastic thing to be a part of when you look back at it. 1981 at Bells, that big day. 1981 at Bells. I was a part of that day as a kid. That was the first big event, first CT event, first away from home trip to a big event I ever went on. And I made the semis of the trials, made the main event, and I lost to Derek Hine the day before in the main event. And I was in the semis. I was in the last heat of the day on that big day, and I had to sit there as a kid. I'd never been to Hawaii, never seen waves like that in my life. And I had to sit there all day watching it and then paddle out at the end of the day in a heat with Bobby Owens, Mark Warren, and Dave Hansen from South Africa. And so you look back on that stuff, and they were great days to live. Yeah, great days to live, you know.
I'm going to throw one more quick opening or closing. Let's try to do it quick because I got to get to, I want to touch base on the BL Blastoff video challenge. We got to talk about that.
Yes, mate.
Ethan Ewing.
Fantastic.
Door opening or closing? Obviously it's opening. He's new on tour, but I see him as a guy that could win a world title.
His surfing is just it's beautiful, eh? And it's got all of the elements of just perfect, beautiful performance. And again, you said it. It's about that, and it's about how much it's about the heart and how much it means to the individual, how far they're willing to go. When you look at Gabriel Medina, you know how far he's willing to go. Yeah. Right? He's willing to use the rules and in any way that he can to create opportunity for himself to win. Which I don't know there's anyone else out there on that tour that is that willing to win. He does it to the point where sometimes it ruins his chances of winning and sabotages. The pipeline final against Italo was a great example. Yeah. I don't know if energetically, in any way, shape or form, he was ever going to win that final, if it was even possible, because of what he'd done before it and how dogged he was in those tactics. And at a point, you've got to be a little bit smarter and a little like sensitive to the energy around and go, maybe I don't need to be a dick right now. And I could pull back on this one and get the bonus points on the other side for being a good guy.
It sort of speaks to your day at Pipe in '89 with Tom Carroll.
Yeah, well,
there's some similarities between Tom and Gabe and their actions that they took that day.
Yeah, and when Tom got the interference, I wasn't even there. I'd gone home to ice my leg. I was here at the house icing my leg, going, "Oh no, not today! I've got to get better." And I get back down there, and they go, "Tom Carroll's lost." And I thought they were joking. I was like, "That's a few idiots," you know. And then I was like, "What? He's out?" And then Oki had Dummer. Had Damien Hardman, and Ock said, I was standing behind the scaffolding with Ock, and he goes, "I'll get him, BL. You watch, mate. I'll get him for you. I'll get him." And then Ock went out and took out Dummer, and I was like, "Wow, the thing's open. Don't think about it, man. Don't. Because I've got the ability to think too much, and I've got the ability to confuse myself and just to keep this thing and keep myself quiet." And keep this thing quiet is a tough work, and hence the meditation, those moments where you sit and don't do and get to listen and have to listen to yourself, and there you learn a lot about yourself. And it's in that's where, to me, there's absolute gold in there for all of them names that you mentioned, and all of them the door could be open given their own personal growth to the point where they allow it to be open. And I suppose that's what I did that year in my surrender. And the surrender helps because you're not holding on to nothing anymore, you know, and you can be malleable, you can be free, you can be present because you're not so tied around a goal. You know, 𝐂𝐻𝐸's most probably a great example of someone who's, you know, the goal's been there a long time and it's so just infuriating for him at times.
Yeah, you need to let go to win sometimes.
You do, mate. And it doesn't mean you don't care.
No,
just
it
means
doesn't.
that you understand your mind and you're manipulating yourself and your mind to create the opportunity for success.
I'm sure you've heard this meditation sort of cliche that let go or be dragged.
Yeah.
You know?
I haven't heard it, but it's, you know, my mind, I do a simple, like I call it 21 breaths, where I just try to count the breath in as 1 and the breath out as 1. And the breath in is 2, the breath out is 2. There's times I don't get past 4.
No.
But I'll be sitting there and I get to 4 and then I'm thinking, then I start to beat me. You're like, you are just, and then I'm like, mate, and that learning to actually let go of your judgment of self and your disappointment and your emotional responses to yourself in your meditation, and actually be able to transition straight back to present.
Yeah.
And back to the breathing and the objective and letting go and dropping all of that stuff is surfing a heat.
Yeah.
It literally is surfing a heat. And when you're out there surfing a heat, that's that place you're in, and the mind wanders, you catch it. A guy says something, you catch yourself reacting to it. Someone paddles, you see yourself move because they're paddled. You're like, he's got you, mate. You don't have him. And that's what I used to play it like that. I'd move, I'd gesture like that, and I'd see them kind of, okay, they're on, and they'd be like fish on the line, mate. Then you'd be like, oh, this way. And you'd see them go, you go, okay, this is good, mate. They're on. They're on the line. All we've got to do is pick our moment. Okay, let's go for a quick little, and you don't know what you're doing. You just go, okay, let's go for a quick little paddle. Yeah, he's coming with me. Sweet. He's coming with me. Okay, let's stop. Oh, what's that one out there? Let's get back over to here. He's coming. Good, good, good. First one would pop up and you'd be like, you going? Oh, you going? And, you know, and the guy's like, because you've got him on the line, you're making the decisions. You're gesturing and you're playing him.
Yeah.
And that's, I had that experience where I knew what they were going to do. I knew what they were going to do next. And I'd set them up and play them. And they'd do it and make the mistake. I'd get the priority, get the wave behind it, win the heat and go, oh, that was clever. Oh, that was good. That was so fun, you know? And I always
speaking of fun, let's talk real quick about the BL Blast Off Global Video Challenge.
Yeah.
Let's see here. I guess it started September 14th.
Yeah.
It runs through the end of this month. We still have 2 weeks left for kids to upload their video. So tell me a little bit about the BL Blast Off video channel. Boost Mobile BL Blast Off video challenge.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And they appreciate it. You know, when I was a kid, my dad in 1973, he had the idea to swim from Palm Beach to Whale Beach, the 2 beaches where we live, as like an open ocean swim. You know, we're talking pre-shark nets and all that stuff. And my dad says to his mates from the surf club, we should swim it. And they go, no, you're a bit nuts. And the first year, him and a bunch of mates, handful of mates, swam it.
Yeah.
The next year, they made a race of it. And it became Australia's very first open ocean swim race.
Oh, okay.
And it was my dad's baby. And my dad died the next year in 75. And it became the Bob Lynch Memorial Swim. It still runs to this day.
Oh, great.
And it's called it's the big swim. It's called the Whale Beach to Palm Beach to Whale Beach.
Have you done the swim, BL?
I have swam the swim.
I bet you have. Good for you. But,
and I got to see what an amazing community asset my dad left behind him, mate. And it's Whale Beach. It's the biggest. 3,000 people swim it every year. It's the biggest, longest running open ocean swim race in Australia. And that's my family's connection to those beaches. My dad loved the beaches. My dad's answer for everything was go to the beach. Yeah. If you're sick, you got the flu, anything, go to the beach, have a swim, you'll be right. You know what I mean? It was his medicine. That's my medicine. And I inherited that respect from my dad. And when I saw what a community asset he'd left behind, I got injured and I knew I was out for 6 months. And I've turned injuries into great things, you know, over my life. And I was like, okay, we're going to do this. We're going to do this event. I'd had this idea for this coaching program / surfing event. So and a week or two later, Hurley approached me and said, hey, we love what you're doing with the kids. And we know no one supports you. And we'd love to support you. And I was in that bitter negative state of really not having much respect for ASP or surfing and especially the companies. And I went, I don't need any more clothes, mate.
Yeah.
That was my answer, like cheeky asshole answer. And Simon Haskell, the guy who was running Australia, said, well, what do you need? I was like, money, be good. He was like, and then I said, but I've got this idea for a kids event. Perhaps we could do that together. And Hurley and I started Blast Off together. And that's why when Bob Hurley he saw in me, because of my time on that board, I was essentially blacklisted because I was vocal, political, and nothing I had to say was going to be any good for ASP or those companies that ran it. Right. Yeah. And I was essentially blacklisted. And Bob was the one who said, hey, he said to me, he goes, you didn't deserve what happened to you. You didn't deserve how you were treated. And, and the Hurley family kind of opened its arms to me and went, let's do some stuff. And we created that event together. And 15 years later, we were going, it's the biggest in Australia, a family surf festival in Australia. 330 kids do it every year. We're at capacity. We could have hundreds more if they want to get in. We can't fit. We took it to Bali. We were taking it to the Maldives, and there was a global expansion of the physical events happening. And then this happened. And I had the video idea in my mind for a while because it's obviously a way to be more inclusive and to allow people access to what our vibe is, to what we do at Blast Off. And that's all about progression and stoke. They're our two pillars. Yeah. We just want to get people stoked, and we want to help them improve at their surfing because we figure the better you surf, the more fun you have. That's my experience.
So how does a kid get involved? How does say a young 14-year-old down the beach here where I live?
Yeah.
How do the kids?
They go to Barton Lynch.
Where should they go?
Yeah, bartonlynch.com. Go to bartonlynch.com. Follow the links. You go there. We've got over 250 videos from kids all around the world: Canary Islands, Costa Rica, Japan, Brazil. All these little corners. Wales, Belgium. Kids from all these different countries who are like. And I said it to Matt Mayhem Biolis. I said to Matty, he's like, how are you going to get it out there? And I go, well, we're going to use, the connections I have in the media and stuff. But in the end, I think if there's an appetite, they find you. You know what I mean? And there's kids in Belgium and Canary Islands and stuff who have found us because they want to be a part of something, mate. And they know that every single video that comes in, I coach. So the 250 that have come in so far, I watched the video, and then I put a paragraph of coaching in the chat room on that particular video, and all the other kids are in there looking at the clips, reading the coaching, commenting on each other's videos, and we've created this classic environment, a community of 250 stoked little grommets all connecting with each other from all around the world, and you see people say, I can't wait to come and surf your waves and play with you one day. Because they're kids and they play with each other. And so, and every single day we give stuff away. Every day of the 6 weeks, we give prizes away from our sponsors. And then the major prize, the Expert's Choice, I've got a panel for the Expert's Choice, which is Jack Robbo, Eli Hanneman, Vahini Fierro, Mahina Maeda, and Kais King. So I've got and myself. So there's 6 of us on that judging panel. We're going to judge the Expert's Choice for the best videos, and they get to do a coaching boat trip to the Maldives with me and come on my boat charter and do the coaching trip for the week. And then the public vote winners, the ones with the most likes, are going to go to the Surf Lakes plunger at the wave pool in Yeppoon, North Queensland. And surf that.
Wow, cool.
So so we've got some really good big prize. All the winners of the best categories: best wave, best tube, best air, worst wipeout, all get brand new surfboards from Lost and CI. Lost and CI partner with us on it, and both give away a couple of boards. So the winners of those categories get new boards, and then we just give stuff to kids who bring stoke. That's what we say. The kids that we watch videos, and there's kids we got one of a kid in South Africa getting his first surfboard ever. It's in the back of the car, and he doesn't know. He's going surfing, and he doesn't know it's there. And mum and dad video it, and he gets the board, and he sees it, and he's like, and he's holding it, and he's hugging it, and he's hugging his parents, and you're like, oh, that kid's getting a prize, man. And so people immediately, because at our physical events, we don't score a ride for 3 days. All we do, the kids go surf their heat or surf their session, and our panel is all coaches and ex-professionals, and they watch them surf, and they come in and they tell them what they did. We tell them what they did right and wrong. And they go up to the Hurley Surf Club van, they watch their heat on video, and they get taken through the coaching notes by a coach who explains the coaching to them. And then they go home and come back and do it again. So they get 3 turns. So they don't lose.
Sweet.
It doesn't matter whether you come first or sixth. You're still getting the same coaching, the same love. You're involved in this thing for the 3 days. And it's the best thing, because all you hear is surfing. It's all about surfing, all about getting better. And that's where the unique nature of our physical events came. And then I didn't know if we'd be able to translate that essence of what we're about, because we're for everyone. As an event, in the world of targeted demographics, what the chances of you creating an event that is a first timers event, but also has the best kids in the country in it?
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it's possible, but that's what we have, because we've been ourselves. And we've let the market define itself. We didn't think about demographics and who we are building it for. We built it on morals and judgments and beliefs that we had about there was a good way to build community, and it's worked. And then it translated straight into the video world, that's the biggest stoker, is people get it. We've got beginners and young kids sending us there. They're not very good surfers at all, but they're a part of our community, and we're stoking them out and giving them the coaching, and they're as important as the good kids. And they're all.
I'm going to send in a video. If he looks like an old guy, but he says he's 14, it might be me, but I just need some advice.
Well, that's the next thing. We do have ideas around us, guys. We're thinking we call that re-entry. And do similar events for people our own age, and build that community for people of our own age, because that's in this world we're living in now, with the social distancing and the concepts of new normals and stuff. Community and connection is what we need, mate. We're physical, energetic beings. Staying 6 feet apart from each other is that what they say is that distance that the person's aura doesn't permeate beyond. You come within 6 feet and you can start to feel someone, and their energy is connecting with your energy, and you're becoming something. It's life. That is life. So in a world of social distancing, when those sorts of connections to other people are being stripped away, that's why I feel like what we're doing now with this event and for the kids is so important, because we're giving them community. We're giving them something to be a part of at a time when a lot of their other things are being taken away from them. It might even be school and the connection with their school friends. My son, because we're in quarantine at the moment, my son had to go on a phone to connect with his kids from our yard and look at his schoolmates in the classroom and say good day to them yesterday.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So to be able to bring people together at this time, that to me is the gold. That's what's great about what we're doing. And then for all our sponsors that went from the physical events and straight into this and supported me, and went, okay, let's see. You got an idea? Let's see. You had an idea last time, and 15 years later, it's still going. Same sponsors, people I work with. We've been working with for years, over a decade. They've been together with what we do, and we build them together. And they give me the collateral to turn the kids on, and stoke them out, and then we go out there and do it.
All right, it's the 2020 Boost Mobile BL Blast Off Video Challenge. It's different this year, as you mentioned, because of what we're going through. And so kids need to go onto the website and upload your video and be a part of this and get involved and be part of Barton's community. So good stuff.
That's what it is.
Barton,
mate.
thank you, man. Thanks for your time this morning, man. We did almost 2 hours. I told you only do an hour and a half, and it was a lot of fun. We need to do this again. Let's try to back up in a year or so and chat it up some more. I really appreciate you being on the Boardroom Podcast.
It's a pleasure, mate. I appreciate you supporting us and with the event. And it's funny, like you said, nearly 2 hours. I didn't even notice it, mate. It's just like having a chat with your mate. You're just kind of there having a chat and talking your stuff. And so sorry to take up so much of everyone's time.
No, I'm honored. I'm a big fan, brother. Thank you so much.
Thank you, mate. Appreciate it.
All right.